I've lived in a quiet cul-de-sac in Arizona for nearly 15 years. Retired Navy, decent pension, like my coffee black and my neighborhood peaceful. My Jeep, a 2003 Wrangler, beat up, dusty, but a tank on wheels. That Jeep and I have history, but more on that later. Now let me tell you about her. Her name is Karen McMillan, and she's the newly elected president of the Silver Pines Homeowners Association. Late 50s, pixie haircut, owns 3 poodles named after Supreme Court justices. The woman drinks Chardonnay at 3 p.m. and quotes the HOA bylaws like they're the Constitution. You know the type. When Karen moved in last year, the HOA was mostly harmless. Annual fees, trash collection reminders, the usual suburban fluff. But ever since she got elected, under highly suspicious proxy vote circumstances, mind you, Silver Pines became less of a neighborhood and more of a gated dictatorship. And apparently I was public enemy number 1. Why? Because I had the audacity to park my Jeep behind my own gate on my own property for more than 48 hours. According to Karen, this violated Article 6, subsection B of the updated HOA rules. Never mind that the update came after I parked it, or that I was working on minor repairs for a neighbor as a favor. Karen didn't issue a warning, didn't send a letter. She cut the padlock to my side gate, walked right onto my property, and had the Jeep towed by some shady company that apparently owed her a favor. When I got home that evening and found the gate hanging open and tire tracks through my yard, I thought I'd been robbed. Turns out I had, just not by criminals, by the HOA. I marched over to Karen's house that night. Her porch light was warm, her wind chimes were chirping, and there she stood on her porch in an IHOA sweater like she was in some cult. She didn't even flinch when I told her she'd trespassed. According to HOA authority, she chirped, vehicles in violation can be removed without notice. We're just maintaining community standards. Community standards, my foot. Here's the part Karen didn't know. That Jeep, it was temporarily under surveillance by a federal task force working a multi-agency operation involving, you guessed it, Karen's good buddy Roger, the contractor she's been funneling HOA repair jobs to. I wasn't just tinkering with the Jeep. I was helping collect evidence. Legally, quietly. As a former federal tech advisor, I sometimes consult for agencies on low-profile operations. But now Karen had tampered with a vehicle connected to an ongoing federal investigation. Oops, Karen had only been HOA president for 3 months. But in that time, she'd increased monthly HOA dues by 22%, claimed it was for beautification projects, i.e., overpriced potted plants from her cousin's nursery, required all residents to submit landscaping designs for approval, including backyard spaces, created a compliance committee made up entirely of her tennis buddies, began issuing $75 citations for everything from slightly tilted mailboxes to faded lawn chairs. But it didn't stop there. She weaponized the HOA Facebook group, renaming it Karen's Corner, a place for neighborhood harmony, and began banning any posts that questioned her policies. She even added a clause to the bylaws about flag colors. No flags larger than 3 by 5 feet unless it was the American flag or a flag she personally approved. You think I'm exaggerating? She made Carl from down the street take down his vintage Route 66 flag because it was too nostalgic. At first, most of the neighbors grumbled quietly. HOA politics are like potholes. Annoying, but you get used to them. But I started noticing a pattern. Karen wasn't just issuing citations, she was targeting people. Tom, a Vietnam vet, got fined $250 for his non-regulation fence. It had ivy growing on it. Lillian, a widow in her 80s, was told to repaint her entire garage because it was clashing with the seasonal aesthetic. The Jeffersons, fined for parking their son's pickup on the street during his college break. Meanwhile, Karen's house, Christmas lights up in July, her husband's boat parked across the sidewalk. But no fines there. So I started digging. One of the perks of being semi-retired is that you have time. And I used mine wisely. Using public record requests and a couple connections from my federal days, I found something interesting. Over the past 6 months, 3 contracts from the HOA, including lawn care, security patrols, and pool maintenance, had all gone to companies linked to one name, Roger Dillman. Roger wasn't just Karen's contractor friend. He was also her brother-in-law, and his security patrol service, Two guys in a golf cart with clipboards and zero training. These contracts had no bids, no transparency, and no oversight. Karen was bleeding the HOA funds dry, then covering it up with flashy flower beds and community barbecues. Meanwhile, residents were too busy repainting their shutters to notice. Oh, and remember the Jeep? I hadn't forgotten. It had been towed to a secure facility, which turned out to be a storage lot owned by a company Roger had used before. The tow paperwork was riddled with inconsistencies, and this is rich, the HOA towing policy Karen referenced in her notice didn't exist until 2 days after the Jeep was removed. And yes, I got the Jeep back, but not before it had been parked in the open sun for days, unlocked, and with its GPS surveillance equipment partially tampered with. That was the moment the task force I'd been consulting with decided enough was enough. See, Karen had unknowingly interfered with an ongoing investigation into fraud, money laundering, and, you guessed it, contractor kickbacks involving small-town HOAs. I wasn't just some guy with a dusty Jeep. I was a quiet piece on a very large chessboard, and Karen had just knocked over the wrong one. But justice isn't just about catching people red-handed. It's about making the truth so loud. Even the HOA newsletter can't ignore it. So I started talking. First, I met with Tom, the Vietnam vet with the ivy fence. Turns out he used to be a lawyer. He just stopped practicing after retirement. Then Lillian, sweet Lillian, invited me in for tea and told me Karen had shamed her during a community meeting for not keeping up with her responsibilities. She said I was bringing down property values, Lillian whispered, tearing up. I asked her if she still had the letter Karen sent. She did. I took a photo. It was gold. In less than 2 weeks, I'd spoken to 14 homeowners, all with similar stories. Some were scared to speak out. Others were just exhausted. But once I showed them the contracts, the vote rigging evidence, and even a few photos of Roger's security guys playing Candy Crush on patrol, they were ready. We decided to call a special HOA meeting. Under the bylaws, if 25% of residents signed a petition, a special session had to be called. We got 42%. Karen tried to block it, claimed the signatures weren't certified, then tried to change the bylaws to require 60% for safety and stability. Too late. The meeting was happening, and Karen was walking right into it. The night before the meeting, I sat in my backyard sipping coffee and listening to the cicadas. The Jeep sat quietly in the driveway, cleaned, intact, and humming with a quiet confidence. I'd installed a GoPro on the porch. Karen had a habit of walking by late at night, just checking for code violations. I wasn't about to give her an opening. And upstairs, a folder, full of emails, contract scans, screenshots of manipulated Facebook posts, even a video of Roger handing Karen a suspicious envelope behind the community clubhouse. Was it dramatic? Sure. Was it personal? Not really. It was just necessary. Some people run their HOA like a business. Karen ran hers like a kingdom. And tomorrow the villagers were marching on the castle. If you've never been to an HOA meeting, let me tell you, it's like jury duty in a stuffy church basement, but with worse snacks and more passive aggression. But this one felt like a courtroom. Word had spread fast through Silver Pines. Flyers showed up in mailboxes. Lawn signs popped up overnight. Hold the HOA accountable. Thursday at 7 p.m. Clubhouse. Someone, okay me, may have also printed a few bumper stickers. Even folks who hadn't attended a meeting in 10 years showed up. Tom wore his old law school tie. Lillian brought oatmeal cookies, in case things get ugly. And Karen? Karen strutted in 15 minutes early in a blazer with shoulder pads, holding her faux leather HOA rulebook like it was the 10 Commandments. She smiled. She waved. She even brought Roger. Big mistake. The clubhouse had never been that packed. Folks were lined up against the walls, whispering, arms crossed. No one was here for lemonade and light discussion. They were here for receipts. Karen tried to start the meeting with her usual condescending smile. Good evening, neighbors. Before we begin, I'd just like to remind everyone that respectful behavior is expected. Tom stood up before she could finish. We'd like to make a motion to override the agenda. Karen blinked. That's not permitted without a prior petition. Actually, Tom said, unfolding a copy of the bylaws, Section 4, subsection C says, if over 25% of homeowners attend, We can override. And judging by the number of cars outside, the room murmured. Karen's mouth twitched. Fine, she said, snapping the rule book shut. Let's proceed, if you must. Tom nodded at me. Showtime. I walked up with a stack of folders, handed one to every row. Each one labeled Financial Irregularities and Policy Violations, HOA under Karen McMillan. Inside were copies of the no-bid contracts to Rogers companies, HOA checks signed by Karen for consulting fees with no explanation, a side-by-side of her personal garden receipts, reimbursed from HOA funds, screenshots of her online posts threatening residents who challenged leadership. Then I queued up a video. Security footage from a neighbor's Ring doorbell. It showed Karen and Roger cutting my lock, walking onto my property, hooking the Jeep to a flatbed tow. The room went silent. That vehicle, I said calmly, was under federal surveillance. And tampering with federal property, by the way, carries up to 5 years in prison. Someone gasped. Lillian crossed herself. Karen went pale. For a moment, Karen stood frozen. You could see the gears turning. Then she did what all cornered Karens do. She lashed out. This is a witch hunt. He's been antagonizing me since day one. That Jeep was parked illegally. On private property, someone shouted. He's spreading lies. Those contracts are legal. Roger is a professional. Roger's security team fell asleep on my porch, another voice chimed in. You stole from us, someone else shouted. I paid a $200 fine for Christmas lights, and meanwhile you bought hydrangeas on our dime? Karen's voice cracked. I am this community. I've worked tirelessly to protect it from chaos. And now you want to replace me with this vigilante mechanic? I smiled. Not a mechanic, Karen, a federal consultant. Karen lost it. This meeting is illegitimate. I won't recognize any motions. I am the president. Not anymore, Tom said, standing. We have the signatures for a no confidence vote, right here. He held up a stack of pages. Karen knocked them out of his hand. Gasps. One of the poodles barked from the back. It was over. She just didn't know it yet. As if the night couldn't get more dramatic, the clubhouse door opened, and in walked 2 men in suits. FBI. No handcuffs, no shoving, just calm, quiet words. Mrs. McMillan, we'd like to speak with you regarding some financial activities connected to your HOA presidency. Her voice trembled. You can't be serious. But they were. She was escorted out. No cuffs yet, just stern silence. Roger followed, sweating through his button-down. A few residents applauded. Others just stood in stunned silence. I sat down next to Lillian. She passed me a cookie. I made them extra soft, she said. Seemed like it'd be a rough night. In the weeks that followed, Silver Pines slowly returned to something resembling normal. The HOA board appointed an interim president. Fines were suspended pending review. An independent audit confirmed what we already knew. Karen had embezzled over $34,000 in administrative costs. The pool funds had been rerouted. The new flower beds, triple charged and poorly installed. Residents got partial refunds. Rogers companies were barred from bidding in the state. Karen, she wasn't arrested that night, but she was formally charged 3 weeks later, fraud, misuse of HOA funds, and trespassing. You'd think that after being removed from her HOA throne, publicly humiliated, and investigated by the feds, Karen McMillan would finally steer them away quietly, sell her house, and disappear into the nearest wine club. But Karen doesn't do quiet. It started with a manila envelope, hand-delivered, no return address, just my name. Inside, notice of civil action, defamation, harassment, and intentional infliction of emotional distress, filed by Karen McMillan, plaintiff. Apparently, I had intentionally undermined her character, reputation, and mental health with what she called a coordinated character assassination during the HOA meeting. Let's pause here. This woman cut the lock to my property, towed a federally marked Jeep, fined elderly neighbors for garden gnomes, embezzled thousands from community funds, and now I'm the bully? See, Karen thought she could turn the narrative. She figured if she sued me, I'd fold. That I'd settle out of court, apologize publicly, and maybe even leave Silver Pines altogether. And honestly, that probably would have worked if I were the average retiree, if I didn't have a legal background, if I didn't keep every receipt, if I didn't already suspect she'd try exactly this. So I lawyered up, quietly, thoroughly. And then I let her build her own gallows. Once the court allowed discovery, Karen's past started unspooling like an old cassette tape. My attorney, bless her sharp glasses and sharper sarcasm, uncovered the following gems. An email from Karen to Roger sent 2 days before the towing incident. If he won't pay the HOA dues, we'll make an example of him. Let's get that eyesore Jeep off his lot and remind everyone who's in charge. A group chat screenshot between Karen and her inner circle mocking residents by name. Lillian's garage looks like a crime scene. Wonder if her cataracts affect her paint job choices. Bank statements showing Karen used HOA funds to pay for a weekend spa retreat filed as emergency leadership seminar. But the real kicker? A voicemail she left one of the HOA board members who refused to back her. If you speak up at the meeting, I swear I'll have you cited every week until you move out. This wasn't just pettiness, this was calculated abuse of power. The trial wasn't on national television, but it may as well have been. Half the neighborhood showed up in the back row. Some wore I the Jeep pins. Lillian brought cookies. Again. Karen arrived in full war paint, designer handbag, power suit 2 sizes too tight, and a lawyer who looked like he specialized in divorce settlements for country singers. She strutted in like she was the one pressing charges for war crimes. Her lawyer started off hot. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a case of defamation, of mob mentality gone unchecked, of a man with a vendetta against a woman who simply enforced the rules. I couldn't help but smile, because the judge, she'd already read the file, and she didn't look impressed. My lawyer began slow and steady. Your Honor, the plaintiff claims reputational damage. We submit that her reputation was, in fact, accurately described. And we have 27 neighbors ready to testify under oath. Boom, we rolled out. 3 former HOA board members, a retired accountant who audited the books, Tom the vet with his ivy fence fine, Lillian who brought printed color copies of Karen's passive-aggressive notes, and me, I walked the judge through a timeline, complete with aerial photos of the towing route, email headers with IP addresses, and a lovely clip of Roger loading my Jeep onto a tow truck, grinning like he'd won the lottery. By the time we finished, Karen's attorney was sweating through his tie. And Karen, she stood up to clarify a few things and proceeded to yell at the judge about how unfair this all was, how she was the real victim, and how the HOA president should have executive immunity. Yes, she said executive immunity. The judge took less than 15 minutes. She dismissed Karen's lawsuit with prejudice, called it meritless and retaliatory, and referred the evidence package to the district attorney's office for further investigation. Karen didn't just lose the case. She opened herself up to criminal charges. Within a month, Karen was banned from holding any HOA leadership roles in the county, fined $8,000 in legal fees, facing 3 misdemeanor charges: trespassing, misuse of community funds, and harassment. Her house? She sold it 2 months later under market value. Rumor has it she moved to Florida to start fresh. Roger's business is folded. The community clubhouse got new paint, new chairs, and new leadership. And me? Well, I put the Jeep back in the same spot it was towed from, just because I could. It started with a phone call from Channel 7. Hi, Mr. Foster. This is Katie Blake from Cats News. We're doing a segment on HOA corruption. We heard about a case involving a Jeep and someone named Karen. I laughed. Oh, they'd heard all right. Apparently, one of the residents, Tom's wife, bless her heart, had written a letter to the news tip line, complete with links, meeting minutes, and the now infamous security footage of Karen towing my Jeep like it was a stolen bicycle. The producers loved it. They called it the HOA from hell, when one woman took on a neighborhood and lost. The piece aired on a Wednesday evening at 6 p.m., prime time, right between the weather and high school football highlights. It opened with a slow zoom in on the Silver Pines neighborhood sign, then cut straight to me standing in front of my Jeep. I'll admit it, I wore my cleanest flannel and even trimmed my beard. When she cut my lock and took the Jeep, I said, I wasn't angry. I was impressed at how dumb a decision could be. Then came the testimonies. Lillian holding up Karen's passive-aggressive letters like they were artifacts from the Salem witch trials. Tom showing the $250 citation he got for his unauthorized IV. Even Roger's former security guys who admitted they were paid in cash in pizza rolls. And finally, the footage. There was Karen marching up to my gate, bolt cutters in hand, gesturing like she was directing a marching band. They even slowed it down and added dramatic music. It was beautiful. Within 24 hours, the video clip was uploaded to YouTube, then Facebook, then Reddit, then TikTok somehow. Titles like, HOA Karen steals Jeep, doesn't know it's a federal vehicle. This HOA president thought she was above the law. Watch what happens next. It exploded. Thousands of views turned to hundreds of thousands. Comments poured in. This is better than cable. Justice has never tasted so sweet. I want this man to narrate my life. Karen became a meme, a literal meme. One photo of her standing at the meeting, red-faced, arms crossed, had the caption, "Me when I get caught spending $4,000 on decorative mulch." The public pressure from the news story and the viral response had an unexpected side effect. The County Housing Committee opened a broader review of HOA practices in the region. Turns out Karen wasn't the only president playing dictator, but she was the most dramatic. New laws were proposed that required full transparency for all HOA financial records, open bidding for vendor contracts, third-party audits every 2 years. Karen's ego may have actually improved Arizona HOA law. Now that's a legacy. 3 months after the courtroom drama, Silver Pines didn't just feel different. It was different. The new HOA president? Lillian. Yes, that Lillian. Turns out she used to be a school principal, and boy did she run meetings like a pro. No more surprise fines. No more weird lawn inspections. She even started a Neighbors Helping Neighbors program. Residents could volunteer to help with yard work or repairs for seniors. The clubhouse was repainted, refurnished, and renamed the Commons. People started waving again, hanging out, sharing tools. We were a neighborhood again, not a battleground. I still live in the same house, same Jeep, same coffee mug that says AOA Survivor. I didn't want any awards. Didn't run for the board. I just wanted peace in a front yard where I could plant tomatoes without a citation. But every now and then, someone knocks on my door. Hey, are you the Jeep guy? Is this the famous gate? Do you still have the footage? Yep, and double yep. Sometimes I show them. Sometimes I just smile. Oh, and Karen? After the news story aired, she sent one final message, through her lawyer, of course. Ms. McMillan requests that Mr. Foster cease all public commentary about her and remove any online content using her likeness. We sent back one sentence. Tell Ms. McMillan she should have thought of that before trying to run a suburb like North Korea. They say community is fragile, that all it takes is one bad egg to ruin it. I say, one bad egg just shows you how strong the rest of the carton is. Karen thought she was the HOA. Turns out, she was just a chapter, a cautionary tale in a larger story about what happens when power goes unchecked and neighbors get fed up enough to push back. And me, I didn't set out to fight. I just wanted my Jeep back. But if I had to do it all over again, I'd plant even more tomatoes, and maybe, just maybe, I'd leave the gate unlocked. Let them try. Let's be clear, not every HOA is a problem. Some are well-run, fair, helpful even. They shovel your sidewalks in winter. They mow the grass in common areas. They don't send angry letters because your Halloween pumpkins stayed out till November 2nd. But when an HOA goes bad, it doesn't just annoy you, it isolates people. It bullies the vulnerable. And sometimes it steals your Jeep and ends up on the 6 o'clock news. So let's talk about the real lessons here. A homeowners association is not a monarchy. It's not meant to be a weapon wielded by someone with a clipboard and a grudge. When rules become tools of personal control, when fines are handed out more often than handshakes, you've got a problem. Ask yourself, do you know who's on your HOA board? Are meetings open? Are budgets transparent? Do decisions feel fair or suspiciously personal? Karen ran Silver Pines like a fiefdom until one too many people got tired of bowing. For months, people whispered about Karen. They didn't like the fines, but they paid them. Didn't like the tone of her letters, but threw them away. Didn't want trouble. And honestly, I don't blame them. We're all tired. We just want peace. But here's the truth. When good people stay silent, bad rules get louder. The day things started to change wasn't when I found my Jeep missing. It was when Tom said, "I've had enough." When Lillian brought her folder. When neighbors talk to neighbors. That's how bullies fall. Karen counted on people not reading the rules. She slipped in new amendments quietly, moved budget items into vague categories, issued citations that sounded official but weren't. Turns out most HOA bylaws aren't that hard to read. And if you ever get confused, ask. Better yet, run for the board. Don't give power to someone just because they're loud or have a fancy lawn. I wasn't trying to start a movement. I just wanted my gate fixed and my Jeep back. But one letter turned into 2 signatures. 2 signatures became 27 voices. And a HOA meeting turned into a reckoning. Courage doesn't have to be loud. It just has to be real. Got a Karen story of your own? Been on the wrong end of a ridiculous HOA fine? Ever fought back and won? Drop it in the comments below. Let's hear your story. You never know who might need to hear it. And if you're dealing with an overreaching HOA right now, bookmark this story, talk to your neighbors, read your bylaws, and never underestimate what a few good people can do together. From one Jeep owner to every HOA survivor out there, you're not alone, you're not powerless, and sometimes justice really does come with a GoPro and a good cup of coffee. Thanks for following the story. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you want more true tales like this. And remember, bad HOAs make rules. Good neighbors make change. Have you ever dealt with a Karen on your HOA? What's the most ridiculous fine you've ever gotten? What advice would you give someone stuck in a bad HOA? Let's talk.